Hey guys, Cory from RooBuck Nevada tagged me in this video and just asked if I'd weigh in with my 2 cents on what I thought of this big old sucker he's got tied to the truck. And man, first impressions, really nice looking gelding, really pretty, muscled up, and I'm not sure if he called him a bay, but I think I see a dorsal stripe right there, so I would maybe say he's a red dun, but maybe Cory does say that. Um, but we'll pause it right there. Really, really nice looking horse. Um, what's my take on him? Well, Cory asked me to be super honest. So obviously, right out of the gate, really nice looking horse. Before you get too into the weeds, when you're taking a look at either potentially buying a horse or evaluating, one for specific jobs, or just going through maybe a herd and picking one for, to try and figure out if they're going to be a good fit for what you're doing. Um, one thing to keep in mind is obviously your intended purpose with them, right? So Cory does say, right, he bred this horse to be able to cover some big country and rope on, and I think he's built great for that. I'll talk a little bit about why and give you my 2 cents on if this is a horse, I would really like. Some of the things I would do away with if we could, right? If this were a perfect world. And always keep in mind when we're talking horses, we're talking perfection, right? We're talking if we could get the perfectly ideal horse. And that's never going to happen. But I'm just going to give you my 2 cents on if we're looking for ideal in a horse, what that would look like. So the main thing I see on this horse that I would not be a big fan of, that is less than ideal to me, is the 3 white feet. Sometimes it doesn't make a huge deal, but I would say more times than not, the white feet um, can be associated with more lameness issues, right? And that's just because white soles are more porous, typically, and tend to contract bacteria more frequently than black soles, at least in my experience. Um, but aside from that, we'll just start working up the leg. You can see the pasterns on this horse, and those are going to be the first bones, long and short pastern, between the hoof and between the cannon bones. So those two bones in there. Um, those look short to me, which is really good for a horse that's covering a lot of country. It means potentially there's going to be less soundness issues with shorter pasterns. A longer pastern is going to equate to a more comfortable ride typically on a horse because there's more suspension there. Um, but shorter pasterns, you're not leveraging that digit as much, obviously. So, going to be a sounder horse for longer. But the downside of it is it's going to be like this horse likely. I would guess just based on the pasterns, the trot is a very bumpy trot. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but it does look like, at least from this angle, that those pasterns are short. Um, so definitely could be a bumpier trot. And shorter pasterns does associate later on in life to maybe having a little bit more concussion related issues. So maybe some arthritis in those lower limbs. Excuse me. But every horse is going to get some degree of arthritis as they get older. But yeah, those shorter pasterns can have some association to that. But yeah, overall, really nice looking horse from working our way up the limbs here. But I like I like the short pasterns for exactly what he's being used for. And again, right, the longer pastern is going to equate to that more suspension in the trot, more suspension in the ride, just being a little bit comfier of a ride. There is a chance though, because of the angle, right? If you see that HPA, the hoof pastern angle, right, the horse's fentlock is sunk down a little bit. There is a chance because that angle is a little relaxed, um, that horse is using a little bit more suspension, even with the shorter pastern. So I'd be interested to talk to Cory and see if this is a comfortable trot or is kind of like riding a dang pogo stick when you trot, which definitely can be a thing with those shorter pasterns where you feel like you're just kind of bouncing up and down, and it's there's no cushion, but. So we'll keep working our way up. You know, I would say that the ratio, right? So the amount of times a pastern fits in the cannon bone looks pretty good to me. Obviously, right? That the pasterns are not long, right? So we're not in jeopardy of having too much leverage, right? And having a horse that's going to have some soundness issues later in life because they're over leveraging those joints in that suspension system. So no danger of that. I like the ratios, and we'll just keep moving up here. I like the angle of the scapula. Um, that's probably going to be a horse that has a far reach when they're loping, extending. Um, I like that the horse to some degree, and this may not be the best picture to freeze on, but I like to some degree that it looks like a flat horse, meaning the withers are pretty much in line with the top of the butt. This horse, I'll play it for a second here. This horse may be a little bit, maybe just a touch downhill. Not a huge deal, but if I could pick anything, I would pick totally flat, meaning the withers are totally in line with the top of the butt, or the withers just slightly higher. Obviously, if you just think about it from like a mechanical standpoint for a roping horse, if those withers are just a little bit higher, it's just easier on the horse, right? That saddle's not trying to get pulled over the withers as much. um, and it helps just from a collection standpoint, right? That horse being able to get on the hindquarter because that hindquarter is either level or just a touch lower than the chest. When a horse is downhill, that causes potentially, just a little bit more difficulty physically for that horse to shift to that hindquarter and get bridled up because the chest is just lower than the butt, right? And when we're asking for collection, we're asking for the horse to have, a larger percentage of its weight on the hindquarter. So, I would say definitely this horse is pretty darn close to level, maybe just a touch downhill, but really nice looking horse. I do like the angle that the neck comes out of the body too. Let me see if I can back this up here. So, I like that that the neck kind of crests a little bit up. He's got a higher headset. It's not, kind of like the quarter horse headset you see nowadays where all the AQHA deals they're breeding, the horse's neck is level or even going at the ground, like they do in the show world. Not a fan of that. Hard to get them to bridle up. It's like you're picking their head up off the dang ground the whole time. And, just not good for a rope horse either. So I do like this neck on this horse. I like the head on this horse. I believe Cory said these are draft crosses. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cory. Just leave it in the comments. But yeah, believe he said draft crosses, not 100% draft. And you can tell really good looking horses, big, stocky, stout horses, big bone. That's the other thing to mention. Really nice looking bone on this horse. But drafts typically can be a little bit harder. They're just a little slower. They're cold-blooded, obviously. So I'm not sure how athletic this horse is, but I'm sure to some degree, because Cory's seems like a good horseman, that he's got this horse going pretty good. And if you guys follow RooBuck Nevada, man, check his channel out. He gets it done on a horse. So we know this horse can rope darn good. But the draft deal is the slowness to them to some degree. Can be tricky, right? If you're making a bridle horse, just because we want that horse always with us, always under us. So when we move, they move. And the drafts can just take a little bit more sometimes. It's kind of like, can feel sometimes like riding a ship. It's just, everything just a little bit slower. But not everyone's like that by any means. But drafts, I think, just have a higher, higher chance of being like that. But angle the head, right? That's another thing to mention. I like that the head angles down a little bit instead of that nose being straight out. That's a really good asset to have for a bridle horse, and especially in the beginning when you're making your Hackamore horse. We want to be able to pick up that heel knot and that horse shift to the hindquarter and eventually start to get somewhat of a working headset where their nose is more tipped towards the ground. So, the more angled that head angles towards the ground, the better, because there's less that you have to, less ground you have to cover basically. It's going to take you less time to get that horse bridled up. And yeah, overall, really, really nice looking horse here. I'll go ahead and see if we can't move this up. So the hind here, hard to tell, but looks like the horse is sickle hocked, right? Which most horses are nowadays, which means cow hocked, right? They're everything from the hock below rotates out, and that's good. Horses can drive more like that. To some degree, it's better for stopping and makes them more powerful. So don't ever let someone tell you when their hind limbs rotate out and their feet are pointing away, right, from their body, not pointing straight towards their front feet. Don't ever let someone tell you that that's wrong. It's just less than ideal if you were looking at like some type of breeding book typically. But we actually bred it in a quarter horses to some degree to drive more, to be able to drive more with their hind. So I've never really found a huge problem with it. Never had an issue with it. And most horses nowadays are cow hocked anyways. I'm going to go ahead and let this play and see which other angles we get here. Obviously, really good muscle on this horse too, right? Big old bicep, you can see it right there. And just from another standpoint, seems like a friendly horse. I like this dude. But yeah, the white is one thing that I just like to stay away from, so as much as possible. But oh yeah, definitely a red dun. Maybe Cory's going to tell me I'm wrong, but so great looking horse overall. I think in this video he's talking about his saddle a little bit now, and talking about how he's riding see if I can pause it here, riding a double rig because his single rig doesn't fit this horse. My 2 cents on that, I think Cory told me that his single rig was a 5/8 rigging. On a lot of horses, he was telling me that he has a hard time with that 5/8 fitting this horse, these draft cross in particular. And I don't know if it's just that they're draft cross, but just I think a bigger horse you can't get away with as much with the 5/8 because like a 3/4, for example, would probably fit this horse perfect. And in fact, this might, let me play it. It's hard to say. That might be 3/4. That might also be 7/8. Cory, you'll have to tell me. But I'll bet you a 3/4 rigging on this horse would fit him good as a single rig. 5/8 just sits too far back. The saddle's got to sit too far back on this horse because he's so big. The saddle's sitting a little bit more forward on this horse because he's so big. So that 5/8 rigging, I would guess that your cinch probably is just sitting in the wrong spot on him, right? It's sitting a little bit too far back. If you had the 3/4, that rigging would be moved forward just a little bit and get a little bit closer to that armpit, to where I feel like the 5/8 on him, for whatever reason, I'm guessing it's size related, obviously, but I would think that 5/8 is probably just sitting too much in the center of that flank. And center fires used to be all the single rigs, but center fires just don't work on horses these days. This horse, if you've got a cinch, in the center of his flank, it's going to move either forward or backwards all the time. And on these drafts, if they don't have good enough withers to hold that saddle from shifting, you're going to be kind of slopping all over the place. So I would say 3/4, in my opinion. If I were riding this horse, I'd probably put 3/4 rigging on him. And I bet that will just move it slightly forward on him, just so that saddle can't move back, if you know what I mean, right? That chest is or that flank is shaped kind of like a U shape almost, or a C, and if that cinch, that 5/8 rigging, can move backwards, right? So if like where it's sitting is in the center of that flank, or close to it, and it can move backwards when it's tight or forward when it's tight, that's hard. If it can only move forward when it's tight just a little bit, that's okay, but as long as it can't move backwards too. And I think the problem with the 5/8 is it has the ability to probably move backwards and forward because it's in the center of that pendulum, right? Where it can move backwards or forward on him, right? Because it's a U shape, right? That abdomen is a U shape. So yeah, I think, man, it's hard to know without seeing the horse in person, but if it were me, I'd probably do that 3/4, and I would almost guarantee you 3/4 on him. It would just move it just a little bit forward, and that saddle wouldn't be able to go back, and it'd be tight enough to stop it from moving forward, and hopefully just keep it tight enough to that horse's withers to where it can't be pulled forward either. But that would be my guess. I've had a lot of luck with 3/4 rig and single rigs. I like that. That's what I ride. 3/4 pretty much fits anything. Obviously, you can ride a 3/4 as a double rig too. The saddle I've got now is a 3/4 single rig, and it doesn't even have a place for a back cinch. But yeah, I really like 3/4 as single rigs just because it's more versatile. And for anybody else watching this out there that starts colts too, obviously starting in a 3/4 single rig might be difficult, just because colts don't have, or a lot of them, depending on the age you start them, don't have withers. So sometimes a back cinch is definitely the way to go when starting them, but you definitely can do it with the single rig too. You just got to make sure that you have the right saddle to fit that colt. So I'll go ahead and let this play, but that's my 2 cents. It's hard to talk about that saddle deal without being there, but from what I see, yeah, I'd definitely go with the 3/4, and I bet that would fit all those drafts. Yeah, look at that sweet boy. But yeah, really good looking horse. That's a nice saddle, by the way. And obviously Cory rides a Hackamore just like us. I think in a moment here, I'll just go ahead and pause it, see if I can fast forward here. Oh, he's talking about his poly. On another note, since we're just talking about this video, it's supposed to be about the horse, but way to go, Cory. Way to go for throwing the poly. That's how you throw fancy stuff, dude. Cory, if you guys don't follow RooBuck Nevada, go follow him on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. But yeah, he usually ropes with a wax cotton, and he's kidding around with everyone, I think, in this part of the video, because he's been throwing a poly on this saddle, and then he goes in here and says this is his other saddle, the single rig that he's got his wax cotton on. But by the way, guys, this is a beautiful single rig, really traditional, square skirt. See if I can get this pause in the right deal. Gosh dang it. Here we go. Bam. Okay. Really pretty saddle. Square skirt, which is very traditional. There we go. Which is very traditional. I think it's an 8-string maybe. But yeah, square skirt, single rig, 5/8 rigging. That's probably, gosh, I don't know, 4-inch horn, maybe a 5-inch. That probably looks like a 4-inch to me, but hard to tell at the camera angle. Yeah, nice high cantle on the back there, but yeah, really good looking rig there, Cory. Let him show it off a little bit here. But yeah, for everybody out there, and then this is just Cory just getting it done. Good shot, buddy. I'll pause it here. But yeah, so there's proof in the pudding. That horse works. So not a damn thing wrong with him. But yeah, there's my 2 cents on talking about some of that conformation, guys. And yeah, if you don't follow Cory already, RooBuck Nevada, go check him out. And yeah, give him a follow, give him a subscribe, like, and yeah, you guys will probably like his content. He makes some good stuff. So that's my 2 cents. If you guys have any questions, leave comments below. We love hearing from you guys. And one last thing to mention: if you don't ride a single rig or haven't tried it, give it a shot. Cory and I are on the same page. It really teaches you that you can't get away with some stuff, right? Double rigs, front cinch, back cinch. that horse can, you can kind of rope some stuff, and they yank you around, and if you don't slide rope, your saddle doesn't move much. And what I will say is those single rigs will teach you how to handle stock, right? You learn to slide rope, you learn to be a good stockman, because you can put you and your horse in a vulnerable, excuse me, apparently I can't talk today, in a vulnerable situation fairly quick. And it just teaches you how to, that it's what's a good analogy? It's kind of like, gosh, I don't know. It's kind of kind of like doing something without having a safety net almost, because it really forces you to be considerate of your horse, considerate of the stock, and try to keep everything as relaxed as possible. Because if you get in a situation where you rope an animal that you try and muscle around too much, that single rig isn't going to be conducive to that. It's not freaking tied on to your horse in 25 different places. So you've got to know how to handle that animal with respect, with as much calmness as possible in that situation, and be fair to that animal and be fair to your horse as well, because you're not going to muscle an animal with a single rig, right? You can slow them, slide some rope, help them understand to some degree that you're not going to kill them right there, and you'll feel them come around just like you do when you work with horses. But yeah, it'll teach you to really get good at sliding rope for sure, and it'll teach you also that you don't really necessarily need a back cinch, especially if your saddle fits good and you've got 3/4 or 5/8 rigging. To be clear, don't go out and ride your 7/8 or your full rigging, without a back cinch, because that's not going to work. That's going to put too much leverage on your horse's withers when you rope something. So those saddles are designed to have a back cinch. But if you've got a 3/4 rig or a 5/8 or even a center fire, you can go ahead and ride those. Those are intended to be single rig saddles. So it's good for your horse. You're never going to run into a situation where your saddle tree is going to be diving into the horse's withers. That's the point of single rigs, right? Our rigging sits further back, so when we rope something, the saddle doesn't tip forward and drive into the horse's withers, right? It's pulling basically straight down. But yes, again, if you've got something that's 7/8 or full rigging and you rope something without a back cinch, it's going to tip down and drive into your horse's withers. And if your back cinch is loose, to mention, it'll tip up and pop your horse in the flank. So yes, if you've got that rigging, ride double rig. There's nothing wrong with that. That's intended for that. But if you want to try singles, make sure it's 3/4, 5/8 center fire. But yes, my 2 cents is 3/4 works awesome. So enough of the rant on the single rig saddles, but yeah, I love them. I really love single rigs. I know Cory loves single rigs. Very traditional kind of, bridle horse buckaroo deal, but yeah, they work great. And for this style of horsemanship and stockmanship, they're very conducive to that, because we're not trying to muscle anything around. So hope you guys enjoy. Like I said before, this is me just kind of talking about the build of that horse and talking about the saddles a little bit. So awesome horse, Cory. Thanks for asking us to comment on this video. And if you guys, again, don't follow Cory at RooBuck Nevada, go ahead, check him out, give him a follow, like, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And if you guys like content like this, go ahead and click the subscribe button for us as well, Buck and K Horsemanship. Like it, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.